And we are live. My favorite flavor, live. This is the beauty of our Cary Harrison files that we do each Monday at 7 p.m. Eastern. That would be 4 p.m. Pacific, is that we have no FCC limitations. Now, during the regular times, we do have those because we have radio stations and program directors and general managers. And they tend to say no, 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 no. But here it's yes. And whenever your comments come up, we'll just put them on the screen and we'll talk about them. I want to, as always, roll in my dear closest friends. I want to bring in Rory Penland, man of 1,017 voices. And Rory,
1,017.
Are we working on the 1,018?
Because we're working on Ryan Reynolds, and he's a compassionate man.
There's the
Samuel L. Jackson, not so much.
I like this topic. And of course, in order to have a bucket of estrogen splashed in our male faces, we have Renée, daughter of Simone, also ex-lover of Vladimir Putin.
This is all the estrogen. All of my ovaries are just firing it at you guys. And you're instantly getting smarter and more compassionate with every spray.
You know, I love how the shape in a biology book, when you look at the ovaries and you look at the whole reproductive system, it looks kind of like a twisted caduceus, kind of this vulture holding Christmas bulbs.
This is me ovarying you. I'm lording my ovaries over you.
Praying mantis.
We're all doing the Uma Thurman dance.
It's very praying mantis-y, yes.
Okay. That
There's
makes
an
sense
adjective
now.
for you. Praying mantis.
If you connect it to a praying mantis, which is why it looks like that, it explains itself because the praying mantis is the only one where the female praying mantis goes up and eats the head off the male, bites his head off, he keels over and dies.
Yeah, and he nourishes her and the young
head,
by,
and then that's it.
by his body.
Done.
Okay.
He's a compassionate male because he gives his body in service to her lifeblood and the blood of their brood. You see?
Now, did they have a discussion, a consensual discussion first, which is after I nourish your eggs, after I drive my gonopodium into your, that's what it's called. It's weird, but I love that word.
I thought you were going to say gonorrhea. Did they get gonorrhea in the gonopodium?
Well, it's interesting you say that, not for praying mantises, but the dreaded koala bear. These poor little creatures found only in Australia. They weigh about 20 pounds. It takes them 3 days to get up and down a tree because all they eat is eucalyptus, slowly sucking the sap out of a leaf. There isn't no protein. I mean, it's a dull life. But do you know what is killing the koala bears of the world right now? What is their biggest predator? And it's not big. But they're the most threatening predator to the survival of a koala is
man.
No,
a mosquito.
It is found at the villages, an area that we've talked about many, many times here on the show. Chlamydia. Chlamydia is wiping out the dreaded koala.
Do they have the energy to be that prolific?
Chlamydia with the koalas, really?
Now, with humans, chlamydia can be transferred just by skin-to-skin contact, often by rumbusticating o flagrante, which is a really nice way of saying fucking. But I would never say that in a live stream. So that's why I say rumbusticating.
He knows that I whip him when he does that.
She will. Wait, you're down there.
I spray my estrogen at him every time.
I can tell he really enjoyed doing that. His nipples got hard through his jacket. He really enjoyed that.
I wore this. It puffs it out. Otherwise, really but seriously, we're not being serious. We're trying to be serious, but it really isn't working well. But the koalas, they get chlamydia simply by touching, and humans that have chlamydia, it transfers somehow like wildfire on these poor little creatures, and they get it. It's just a bacteria, really. But they all have it, and they have no defense against it because their immune systems are really tender in that they don't have any protein, no exercise. Really, they're just sucking on a eucalyptus leaf. That's it.
I got it from a eucalyptus tree, damn it. I'm telling you right now.
Okay. That's what we should let the people at the if you're just joining us, the Villages is a giant city outside of Orlando, Florida, where the women folk there will take a pineapple, turn it upside down, and put it on the post next to the mailbox. And that signifies to any of the men folk driving by in their golf carts, they pronounce it golf, in their golf carts.
Golf.
Like Trump.
Like, exactly.
Golf
2 fingers
guy.
outstretched. 2 fingers, Renee.
I have a very fast golf
fingers
guy.
outstretched. Run and hide. Duck and cover. Because you know what's going to happen.
Duck and cover. This means something. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. When Trump does this, we know what it means.
We know exactly what it
Yeah.
means.
So the upside down pineapple tells the guys in the golf cart that she's available. She's a swinger. She is ready for action. So you pull up your golf cart, you get out in your polyester pants and you've been baking in the 99-degree high humidity sun all day. Maybe you've even been playing golf and your unfortunate boxer shorts are just clung to your crabbed organ with the Donald Trump style fungus. Of course, his fungus is the toadstool shaped. Let's see if we can see it. Where is
the toadstool. Yeah. Let's run the toadstool.
Do you have the picture?
The
You're not seeing it, are you?
Presentation of the
We have
different.
Let me see if I can bring up the Donald Trump toadstool penis. Why are people calling me right now?
Oh, I think we know why. The phones are lighting up, Cary. That's what you do.
Phones are
You make the
lighting up.
phones light up.
Anyway, we have a beautiful image of, well, anyway, I can't bring it up. I can't get it up, the image. I cannot get it up.
That's what happens.
Stormy Daniels, just to review, pointed out that Donald Trump's, I don't even know what you'd call it. What would you call it, Renee?
His Vienna sausage.
His Vienna sausage. Those mini links you put on a stick. Yeah. His little Vienna sausage is actually like a little Vienna sausage, except that it is unique. On the head, the glans, G-L-A-N-S region of it, is shaped like a giant toadstool cap. So in other words, it's this great hanging like a rooftop with a tiny little shaft. And she said that it was absolutely, of the thousands of men she had received for profit, that his for-profit investment was absolutely the worst sexual experience she had ever experienced. And we did spend a little time a few weeks ago figuring out what it's like if you drive a toadstool in and then try to pull it out. Does it go backwards inverted like an umbrella in a high windstorm during the rain, or does it?
We never want to find out. And now I can never eat a mushroom.
The little
again.
German helmet.
Mushrooms have been ruined for me now.
Yes. It just ruins it. So eating
can't do shrooms anymore.
Yeah, you can't do shrooms, whether they're medicinally indicated. We got to put these on now to read that because it's like 20 miles away. Like if you dropped a Vienna sausage long ways from a tall building and it fell very aerodynamically and landed on the tip. Yes, David, exactly. It would flatten out. And that's what the former president of the United States, that is the weapon of choice that he probably plies on the great Vladimir Putin when they are alone.
Right. And that's what he calls him, the great Vladimir Putin, when they're alone. He calls him the great one.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
It's a contractual obligation from their consensual relationship they signed off.
You think Putin is a bottom?
Putin.
Is Putin a bottom? You know,
he's not a compassionate man.
No, I think Putin is a power bottom.
Power, but I was going to say that. I didn't know the term for it. I was trying to think of what the term was.
Sandy wants to know, David, you really thought about this.
Yeah, that's right. And it's all about the detail and the details on this show. That's right. That's
okay. Yes,
Cary Harrison's brand.
The devil is in the details, and the devil is here. That's for sure. So Vladimir Putin is probably a power bottom. let's figure out why this might be. And remember, our topic is compassionate men. And there's probably a reason we want to actually, maybe we'll even get to the topic. But Vladimir Putin was the head of the KGB when in East Germany, before the wall fell, there was the Stasi, S-T-A-S-I. The Stasi were, of course, the secret police, notoriously brutal. They were the ones spying on everyone. They were torturing people. It was hideous. It was Gulag Central minus Siberia because you're in Germany. So they didn't actually ship people there. They just tortured and killed them there. Putin was the head man. He was the guy who made the decisions of how to torture people. So people that enjoy inflicting that much pain often like to be dominated themselves.
Yes, put them up.
Yeah. How do we know this? Well, take a look at Elliot Spitzer, former, take a look at really anybody that's in a very high position. Who are the ones always getting busted? They're always high-powered Republicans often. The Democrats don't seem to as much. It's not that they're not engaging. It's not. But they're not pretending to be pure. So there isn't brand tarnishment. They just kind of do what they do. But Republicans always tell you they are hooked to the hip of Jesus Christ himself. In fact, they are transfusing their blood real time with the Church of England, and that they've never had an unclean thought, and they're perfect and pure. And then you find them, in the men's room in Minnesota, in the men's room, Minnesota, with a wide stance. In the men's room, a wide stance. And that's when your right foot slides under the wall next to the turlet upon which you are seated, and then your left foot slides under the wall into the other compartment that has a closed and locking door, and you stand and you start twiddling. You can't see my feet, but twiddling your feet, twiddle, and you find out that next to on the other side of the wall is in fact the popo. And the popo have decided you're very naughty and you've broken a law. And then you get arrested. So what do? As you stand there as a congressman, holding the arm of your wife, your dutiful wife, and this is where Renee can help us out to understand this thinking. Says, he turns and looks at her. I'm going to look at you, Renee. Let's do a split screen.
Okay.
Of you and me. There we go. I'm going to look at you. Wait, you're this way. I'm going to look at you and Renee, and I'm going to hold you under my arm, and I'm going to say, I love my wife. I love her so much. This can't have happened that way. I love my wife. And she turns and says,
and I love you too, darling. And I trust you implicitly.
Perfect. See? Now, why would she say that? Two things. One, in this culture, and now I have to say two things, don't I? Because I said two things.
Yeah, you already committed.
Okay, I've committed. Okay, so I got to follow through. One, in our culture, women, after they've been married, maybe had a couple of kids, they run back out on the market. There is no market to which they can run. There is not a panoply of available men going, I want a used car.
Their real estate went down.
The real estate, they depreciated somewhat. And they come with things called offspring. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so it's harder. And it's not like the job world is looking for, and what have you been doing for the last 10 years to upskill yourself and bring yourself into the corporate world so that you know exactly what we're talking about? Well, I made eggs.
I cooked. I was just going to say that. I cooked eggs. I changed diapers. Yeah.
Great.
Put the pineapple outside.
And we're selling Teslas here. So they're not even the cars that you know of. Yeah. How are you good? So you could see okay, now number two. We'll come up with number two later. We're going to put that on hold. Are we allowed to do that? You've got a legal mind, Renee.
Yeah, we're allowed to do that. There was no time. You didn't commit to a time frame. It could be 10 years from now.
Okay. In 10 years, part two.
There you go.
So we were going to do the topic of compassionate men because psychologists all over the country right now it's suddenly become the trendiest thing. And maybe it's a post-Barbie type topic, but we have people like the great Honest Don, whose name you probably heard. Honest Don is running for president of the United States, e pluribus unum, a man who has never lied. Now, George Washington allegedly never told a lie. He didn't say that about himself, but it's told to us that way through our history books so that we can enjoy our myths and not think twice and have any critical thinking. I have a family Bible, which is in my bookshelf that you can't see over there. And my family was from the eastern shore of Maryland, 1645. On my mother's side, Mayflower. But George Washington used to come through the family farm on his way to Washington, D.C. They were farms. And so we all were farmers, whoever we were. And so in the family diaries, they would write about this visit from General Washington and comment on his table manners and other things. Because what else are you going to say about your guest, really? It's not like you have these highfalutin conversations. It's like he's here to have a meal, probably hasn't bathed in 10 days. So you dump
chewing steak with wooden teeth. I mean, come on.
Yes. So they talked about his table manners were suboptimal or some very interesting, polite, lovely, era 1700s way of saying it. But
one rep.
He had written in his diary, George had written in George's diary that sleeping next to Martha Washington was akin to sleeping with a horse.
Hopefully
now, what would that mean? That means that George would prefer maybe a more, a stallion? I don't know. I don't know what it means. But then you read those love letters between him and Alexander Hamilton.
She got a face like a horse, my wife.
Well, it's like FDR and Eleanor. It's like, I want to see you make out. Go ahead.
Washington impersonation.
Yeah.
He was Jewish.
George Washington actually brought in, immigration-wise, wanted a lot of Jewish people because the Jewish people were generally not friends of the King of England because the British had never been particularly friendly toward them. And they were willing to do and organize and create and manufacture and do a lot of stuff for this burgeoning new America where the king was sort of being cut off and therefore we couldn't suck any more blood out of him. So it was kind of a very smart, a lot of that is in the history books, but back to compassionate men. So it's very trendy right now to claim that men are not compassionate. Once again, getting back to Honest Don, or you have
our forefathers were saying, "Hey, my wife looks like a horse." What kind of upbringing is that?
Right. And why would you commit that to writing? So here, our English friend who we had visiting with us, this was some shows ago, explained Honest Don to me because it's still anathema. I mean, I get it. I love P.T. Barnum. I love all the grifters and swindlers in the world. I like to watch them on TV, read books about them. But in real life, when they have nuclear weapons, it's a little nerve-wracking. Just a little. Not much, but just a little. Kind of mushroom, kind of toadstool capped little. I am reliably informed by an Englishman. And remember, we were once his colony. We are no longer a colony for hundreds of years, but they still look us as a rogue colony. He says,
as is Australia for the eucalyptus trees and the
yes, Australia,
the deadly
killing
koalas.
the goddamn koalas with chlamydia exported from the villages.
Chlamydia koalas.
This is terrible. So our English friend says of Honest Don, he's a comic genius and the joke is on you. I know this because he said explicitly during an interview on Fox that when he called Biden Obama, it was for comic effect. And Honest Don cannot lie because he was president under the banner of Lincoln's party.
I'm not cognitively impaired. Okay, I do that on purpose. I switch the names. It's funny. Come on. Get with the program.
A lot of people don't know this, but Lincoln was a Republican. Honest Don wouldn't disrespect his legacy like that. He's a man of integrity. I think you need therapy, Cary, so you can get to the oranges of this hate against your former president. He's like a really, really great guy or something. And he's a worker. He's a builder. He builds things. He owns more Legos than any other president in the history of the world, and he built them all by himself. That's more than can be said for swamp rat Biden, who's never had a real job. Well, you better get ready because Honest Don is really going to drain the swamp this time. He couldn't do it before because of no good Nancy. She's a slut. Oh, she shut down the government for 35 days. The longest government shutdown written by an Englishman. Longest government shutdown in the history of America. He's giving us our history, our current history. Would you think about that? No Republican would do such a thing, but no good Nancy and the Democratic crime syndicate are trying to steal your country because that's always been their agenda. Well, the swamp is going to be drained this time, and there's nothing the Democrats can do about it because Honest Don is going to win, and he's going to win bigly. Get ready, Cary, because
he's going to win bigly. It's going to be the best. You just wait and see.
Get ready because soon America is going to be a place where patriots can feel safe and where school children will once again be able to use their high school bathrooms without being molested by trans woman athletes. If you hate freedom so much, Cary, then maybe you should just leave. Only patriots are going to be allowed in America after November. Done.
Speaking of that German helmet, you know, we're both going to be in a lot of hot water.
I had a .com, Trumpisodes.com, which expired. I told GoDaddy, which has some of my domains, I said, I'm going to let it go. He said, but what a great URL. I said, well, I'm going to end up in the camps. Like, nothing. Just squeaky clean, like a white table. Nothing is the best way to go.
Outside of Mar-a-Lago.
Yeah, where Viktor Orban happens to be visiting today, the dictator of Hungary. Like, let's see, who should we have stay the week, dear? How about the dictator from Hungary? He'd make for a lovely guest. Horrible. Horrible.
You hungry? We got a good spread here.
That's what he says.
That's probably what he said when he came to the front door.
I thought you were hungry. It's a la carte, too.
It's a little joke on your expense. Come on. Have a sense of humor.
Yeah, you're a guest, but like a paying guest.
Bully up to the buffet. I know you're hungry.
Compassionate men.
Have him say smorgasbord. I just came on to have Trump say smorgasbord. I thought that would be great.
I know you're from Hungary, so we got you a smorgasbord. Beautiful. Best smorgasbord ever.
And do you think that anyone even knows that word outside of this country where we've mispronounced it, misspelt it? Like, what does that mean if you say to that? Like
Come on, I watch the Muppets.
Hey, let's have a smorgasbord.
It's a perfectly legitimate term in New York.
Now, Renée, you're of the Ukrainian persuasion or the UP. You're up. Yeah. You are up.
Not good enough for NATO yet. We're still waiting. Another 25 years. Another 25 years we'll be there.
Now, do you understand any Ukrainian at all?
I do. I do understand Ukrainian.
Okay.
And then I learned Russian for a while, and now I'm unlearning my Russian and getting confused again, relearning my Ukrainian.
Okay.
She's taking it slowly, though. She's not Russian.
I'm not Russian it, no.
Put on your Ukrainian chapeau.
Yeah.
And someone
walks
up.
French care. I'm better at French than I am Ukrainian.
Okay, put on your French chapeau then. And your Ukrainian arm patch.
Talk.
And somebody walks up to you and says, smorgasbord. What the hell do you think that is?
I think it sounds dirty, and I would report them to HR. I think that's dirty.
Okay.
They're not allowed to touch me on my smorgasbord. Ain't nobody touch me on my smorgasbord.
Maybe we should encourage Honest Don to start using smorgasbord. Tell them that the MAGA people light up. They go crazy every time they hear that word. Like it makes them run to go do early voting and vote 10, 12, 15 times, which is not a problem if they do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a problem.
When I get in control of the country again, it's going to be a smorgasbord.
A smorgasbord of draining the swamp.
We're going to drain the swamp and turn the whole place into a smorgasbord.
And David said, I know that word mostly from the rat in the animated Charlotte's Web. Templeton raiding the fair at night, singing, a fair is a fair and a smorgasbord.
Wasn't that Paul Lind? Wasn't that his voice?
I love that one. That's my favorite impression.
Do you know Paul Lind? I don't know why I know these things. Probably from having suffered living in LA too long. But Paul Lind used to hang out at a gay bar in Laguna Beach, which is south of LA, about an hour and a half. And he would go there all the time, chronically. And do you know who would go with him just to hang out and have a good time? You'll never guess.
Nelson Riley.
Who may have already been there. Clint Eastwood.
Oh, my goodness.
Clint Eastwood used to hang out with Paul Lind.
Oh, you're a funny guy. Let's go to that bar you like. I like that bar you like. You got great music. Let's do it. Right now, damn it.
I'll bet it was that
He's a
interesting.
Cary Harrison.
But think
Raver.
about, from Paul Lind's perspective, walking in with Clint Eastwood as his arm candy.
This is Clint, my date.
We're compassionate men, damn it.
Now, see, we put up that banner, Compassionate Men, and everyone's going to think that we are being compassionate.
I want to know if
being
Clint
compassionate
Is Clint
at
Eastwood
all.
a compassionate man? Can someone be a Clint Eastwood type and be a compassionate man? Like, what does compassionate even mean is, I guess, my question.
Well, okay, so let's stretch our imaginations for a minute. Clint Eastwood directs the movie called Edgar with Leonardo DiCaprio that's all about J. Edgar Hoover, or Jedgar, as his friends called him, who notoriously dressed up in red cocktail dresses, looking like an angry, besotted bulldog standing on its hind legs, a hideous specter that would never get you laid, not in a million years. But he liked to put on dresses and hang out in the same bars as Paul Lind, it turns out, the head of the FBI, chasing homosexuals and communists. Yes, Lady G, Lindsey Graham. That's what they call her in DC. Seriously, that's his nickname, Lady G. And has helicopters come in and bring his trainer that flies in on a helicopter and exercises Lady G, who probably needs some work on her joints or whatever to make sure that her appendages are moving back and forth in a way that allows good mobility. Like when Tom Cruise jumps up and down on a couch saying, I love my wife. I love her. Really. I swear to God. I swear on a fucking stack of Bibles. I love women. Really. Seriously, Oprah. Really, I do. She's like, well, okay. I'm convinced.
Bending her fingers
Most
back.
men,
Ah!
most men feel they have to do that, as opposed to just saying, I love my wife. Generally, I accept that as being okay. But the way you've really sold it to me, I know you really do love women. Really, you love women. Really, you do. Really.
That was my Tom Cruise laugh.
Yes.
Well, no, Cary, you're speaking about something that I've always noticed is that, like, protesting too loudly. So I've always noticed that certain types of men, they feel like they need to almost in every conversation remind the entire world that they are heterosexual, that they are very attracted to women, maybe their wife or just women in general, and they're going to tell you over and over and over again.
I'm
And
a real man, damn it.
yeah, like
I love
I'm
my
really,
wife.
really
Love my
attracted
kids.
to women, and it's like
I'm macho. I'm a
terrifying.
real man. I got guns.
You got right. I got good. what is that? Are they all closet gays? Or I never know what to do with that. Someone unpack that for me, because it's a mystery. I don't see a lot of women doing the same thing.
Yeah. I'll give you my hypothesis.
Okay.
It's not a theory because it's not proven. I'm sure it's been proven a million times, actually. But we are in America. Wait a minute. We have a comment. Oops, it's gone. That insecurity is the basis of homophobia in general. Well, okay. Yeah, it's an insecurity, but there's also something more going on. You spot it, you got it. So generally, I'm going to give you an example. Let's say you're not gay. Let's say you are 100% straight. You're a Kinsey 1. You are absolutely, unabashedly, completely heterosexual. On the other side, you're a Kinsey 6, which means it doesn't matter how many naked Melania Trumps. Well, let's pick one that's hot. Who's
Hayek.
Selma Hayek.
Okay, there it is. There she is,
You're showing Selma
standing
Hayek.
in nothing but high heels, completely nude. She's just gotten out of the shower with glistening prismatic water drops dripping off her nipples, her hardened nipples that are pointing straight at you, quivering with delight and anticipation. And there she is, and she moves one knee forward and she says, I've been thinking about you. So that Kinsey 1 is going to go out of his mind. His wet dream has come true, and then he's going to find out he soiled himself and can't follow through because it was too erotic. So that's your Kinsey 1, your Kinsey 6 being the opposite. So if I walked into a grocery store, and let's just pick a state where somebody lives. Let's pick Florida. It's such an easy one. It looks like a limp dick. They have a grocery store chain called
I had a
Publix,
feeling.
which is misspelled because it's Florida. It's Publix, or pronounced Publix, which is what it really looks like. And you walk in there and you walk by the frozen vegetable section, and there you see the frozen okra. Frozen okra. Oh my God! Frozen okra. And you pull out a ball peen hammer. You start smashing the glass on the frozen vegetable case. The glass explodes and rains down in shards. Then you dive in head forward and start tearing at the bags of frozen okra, ripping at it, and chunks of frozen okra flying over your shoulder. You're paddling at them like a spaniel, and they're flying everywhere. And suddenly the grocery store floor is filled with bent, torn, shredded bags of frozen okra. The glass is broken. The cops are on their way in. Did you hear that? Maybe not. And somebody might say that person has a problem with okra. An intimate, up close, up front, real, intimate problem with okra. Not a distant observer's, I just don't care for okra. I'm going to forget I even saw it. I walk by. I just don't care about it. Just like somebody who might not like a certain kind of beer. You just don't really see it. And you go find the one you do like because you don't care, because you have no intimate connection with it. That's my okra theory.
I will say I've been
Somebody
to
was
Publix
violated by
that have
okra
been
somewhere
like
in the
that.
past. That's what I'm thinking. Don't put that okra. Oh, don't do that.
Yeah.
No!
So I was walking with a friend the other day, and we're in an urban setting. People are pretty sophisticated. You kind of do when you're in a more urban setting. And some truck drives by and the guy yells out, "Fag!" And I mean, I haven't heard that in a long time. And this guy I'm walking with is completely straight. And he was like, well, shit, that was weird. And then forgot about it. And I'm still kind of rattled by it. And I said, why do you think he said that? He goes, I don't know. Maybe we're a nice looking couple. Ha ha ha. Keeps walking. I'm like, well, let's fucking tear this apart. This is interesting. And what it is, in my estimation, is the guy driving saw whatever it is he wanted that he knows he may not have. So he had to make it go away so that it no longer was in front of him, the thing that he cannot have, or the thing that somebody else might see him driving by that thing and think that maybe he's connected to that okra somehow, even distantly, even by driving by it. He knew the okra would be there. He walked by the okra.
It's all about the okra.
It's all about the okra. Do you see? And I hate okra, by the way. I hate
And
it.
I love okra.
I hate it.
I gathered.
But
It's
but
impersonal.
see, but you could have this in other sectors too. Like you could, and David, I'll come right back to you, but you can have it in other sectors, like men who are attracted to Salma Hayek, but for whatever reason, they feel like, it's like a Jimmy Carter thing. They can't lust in their heart. And so then they would be angry and say, well, she's a slut, or she shouldn't look that way, or she shouldn't have her cleavage out. It all comes, but secretly it bothers him because he wants it, and
That's
he
it.
feels
You nailed it. You nailed it. You nailed it. Now, if she walked into Jimmy Carter's Oval Office, much
Right.
as LBJ used to bend the secretary over the Xerox machine. I mean, we all know this now through history. JFK used to have multiple dalliances in the swimming pool under the White House. The only one that we know of who didn't do anything ever was Richard Milhouse Nixon. But then again, what woman is going to do it with him except Pat, possibly? Well, they did it, and he had a couple of children. But generally speaking, I think you're right, Renee. If a woman who is an object of desire that a man feels is absolutely impossibly out of his reach, therefore, let's do the syllogism, if P then Q, therefore she's a slut. Because if he can turn her into a not interesting, not desirable creature, then he's now superior to her and not the guy that she's going to walk by and go, what the fuck is that on the sidewalk?
Yeah,
I
and-
just want to say that I never called Pat a slut. Never in my life.
these are the guys that are in the basement. What are they called? There's that term for those.
Incels.
Incels hate women because
Let's
they
explain
are
what that is in
involuntarily
case-
celibate.
Let's explain what that is for
Yes.
people who don't know what an incel is.
It's the
And
opposite
I'm
of a
gonna let you do it,
compassionate male.
Renee, because it sounds better from a woman.
Okay,
Made
so
for a
an
man,
incel
but
is
feels like a woman.
an involuntary celibate man. He feels that he can't get a woman that would be at a caliber that he would want to be with. And so therefore he hates women because they are making him involuntarily celibate. He wants to have sex with them. They won't allow him. So then he's violently angry. It's just like the guy yelling faggot in that scenario that you discussed earlier. He can't have it, so now he hates it. And no one else should be able to get it either.
So he's blaming women for the incel is blaming women that turn him away because he's Shrek or whatever the condition is. And remember, that's generally self-inflicted.
Hey, now you're bringing me into the conversation. Stop it. I got a good-looking girl.
He does.
Cartoon. You have a cartoon. You can draw your own girlfriend and she will always love you.
I got a donkey. It makes me waffles.
But I think we're onto something here.
Yeah.
Seriously. So the incel who has a self-inflicted
Right.
situation of body dysmorphia through whatever personal abuses he has provided himself, whether he's been attacking his clubbed organ like whatever it is.
Mushroom.
It's a self-inflicted wound. I mean, he could get out in the sunlight, like literally walk up the steps from the basement and open the screen door as it squeaks open and step out into the light.
And be a nice human being and have a woman fall in love with him because he's charitable,
Yeah.
giving, kind,
Yes.
generous.
Yes, he could be in Publix, the
Mhm.
grocery store.
In
could
the
walk-
okra aisle.
He could be in the okra aisle. He would say, "Pardon me, miss, you look like you might be looking for okra." And she would say, "Well, actually, I wasn't. I hate okra." He'd say, "Well, I'm going to give you some anyway." And then pull out his ball peen hammer, smash the glass, and then end up back in the basement again for another 10 years because she turned him away. That's his fault. So there are basic simple ways that you're supposed to act in front of compassionate men. Basic, simple ways you're supposed to act in front of a woman so that she might accept you just a little bit. 1, don't carry around a ball-peen hammer. 2, don't carry a sidearm or sling an AK-15 over your shoulder. 3, no bump stocks in your crotch to make it look like you're more well-endowed. 4.
No, we like that, Cary. We like
Or
carry
there's
on.
always Pornhub.
We like when they do that. It's endearing.
I mean, I guess if there's like a giant ball of socks in the front of his pants, like George W. Bush had stuffed that flight suit that he wore after 9/11 and was standing in front of the aircraft carrier with what looked 40 gerbils in his crotch.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished with his massive set of genitalia that were just frightening looking,
That
like
was real.
Herman Munster level. And
Just-
thinking that
It's
nobody
real. That's what I'm telling you.
was completely real.
It was
But he was
totally real.
brave because he
Ask
actually
Dick Cheney.
when the shoe was thrown at him in Iraq, he was slow to dodge it, so he was very courageous.
Yes, he was.
He could
Brave.
have batted it back.
Which would have been a compassionate male. Pardon me, sir, your shoe fell out of your hand while it was pulled back and slung forward.
Almost hit me
Clearly,
in the
you
penis.
dropped it.
Well,
Almost hit me
here's
in my ball-peen hammer.
the Santa Barbara shooter, who was a young man and shot, multiple. He before he did that, he taped himself and said that he was an involuntary virgin and that he was angry that women would not sleep with him, and that was one of the reasons he listed as why he was going to do a mass shooting. So that was part of, this is true. Violence against women. Okay, let me get dark here for a second, and then we'll get
Good. Go deep.
during different genocides. Like, for example, during the Rwandan genocide, the Tutsi women were perceived as being fairer and taller and more desirable, and they were installed by the earlier people as like having more power, right? So they were the women who were desirable. The Hutu men were considered to be more dark-skinned and then shorter, and they didn't have as much economic advantages. So when the Hutus were killing Tutsi women with the machetes, they would often cut their legs and say, "Now you're short enough to date me," as they were killing them. This is something that we see in genocides, and I know Rory hates when I talk about he hates darkness, but this goes back to
But look at his
everything Gary's
backdrop.
talking about.
I hate the darkness.
He hates the dark, but this
I do
goes
not
back
like
to
the
the
darkness.
incels. This goes back to the guy yelling the F word out of the thing. It's the anger that I can't have what I want, so now no one gets to have it.
Yeah, it's like ISIS or
Right.
any of these human-made religious sects of violent lunacy. The 5 people at the top take away all the rights of the others. But when no one's looking, just like we learned in George Orwell's Animal Farm, or we saw in the former Soviet system, or we see pretty much everywhere else, the guys at the top, the oligarchs, have yachts and country clubs and Swiss bank accounts and chalets all over the world. Huge boats floating in the Mediterranean and all of that. But when they're back in Moscow or back anywhere else, they live pretty humbly and they complain like everyone else. But I think part of it is you can't, if you have fascism, you can't control a large population if they have a range of motion. This is very much how the Christian religion came about when the Catholic Church in 600 AD, 680 AD came up with the Senate of Rome and came up with new rules. And until 1280, Catholic priests were allowed to marry women because that's what you did. And then they found out, and this was bad, very bigly bad. When a priest would marry a woman, the children often, and we see this here in the US, if a father is a preacher, often the children do not want to be involved in the Southern Baptist Convention anymore, and they go rogue. Well, the Catholic priest would marry the woman, And Catholic priests were the only ones who could read and write. They were the scribes back then. There was no public education, but they had the benefit of learning Latin, speaking it, writing it, being able to do all kinds of things. They had all the gold, the luxury, the statuary. Remember, the church commissioned all the great artists in the world to paint the frescoes, to carve the marble statues. So these guys had the booty, and their children, when they died, would inherit it and split. Suddenly the church is bleeding loot, bleeding treasure. So they come up with priests cannot get married. That's it.
Catholics.
And nuns cannot kiss, make out, get married either, because they're now married to Jesus Christ, who is not hunting for a wife, by the way, especially a nun. Not. Nowhere in the New Testament is it written in there that he's looking for a woman in a burqa.
But Mary was hot.
Was she, though? Wasn't she like an old lady, really? I mean, I don't know. I just want to know, how is it
Not
that
sure I'd bend
Mary...
her over a manger, but you know.
All right, let me ask you this, Rory, because you're a biblical scholar. Now, there he is. He's back. You're a biblical scholar. So here's Mary. She is in a barn somewhere. Pick a barn somewhere. She's in the barn, sitting at maybe needle pointing, doing whatever women did back then. And suddenly the roof explodes. The hay is falling, and the bits of lumber and palm fronds and whatever it's made out of in Jordan in that area back then. And this giant penis comes thundering through the roof and knocks her on her back. Her legs fly up in the air, and she's crowning at a diameter this big. And it plunges into her with its toadstool-like membrane on the top.
We go back to that.
Why not? If it's the gold standard, remember.
You know,
The gold standard.
I was there.
He's the best. He was there. Yes, he was there. And so she gets plowed and impregnated. A few months later, she's starting to show. Here's Joseph, the fiance, walking around with her in the town. And everyone's looking at her big bloated belly. And the fiance's like, I swear I didn't do it. I swear to you, I did not, because, you know, that's the law. No sex before wedlock. I promise you I didn't. Well, doesn't she look like a naughty strumpet? And wouldn't the incel, I mean, do you see where this is going? This is why
Well,
the
you
incels
forgot the
are
part
why
where
they
she
are.
said, Jesus, or God, call me.
Yes. Yeah, like, why would you call?
Let's do it again.
Yeah. Like, who's going to take care of this? Joe?
Burn it now. I'm going to
Joe?
burn it now.
Joe will not forgive me. He keeps telling me, just who was it? I'm okay. I'll forgive you. Who was it? Let's just clear it out. Let's get it out in the open. Who's the father? Who did it? Oh, it was magic. Yeah, it was magic. It was God who did it. It's a miracle. I haven't slept with anyone. I swear to you, I promise, nobody. Here I am. I'm pregnant. It was pure magic. Really? Really? I have not seen a sheep or a cow become parturient with such mystical magic as you do, Mary. And you're pregnant with God? Yes, Joseph, I promise you I've been faithful. I am your fiance. I would never in a million years ever have a dalliance with Timmy, who runs the stable down the road. It was God. Uh-oh. You went black and came back. That's a sign.
Well, you forgot to mention the part about, there are angels floating about and big stars. That's kind of backing her story up.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean,
maybe at first he was like, all right, come on.
It's not like a first-person autobiography here.
Was it? And then they start seeing stars and angels and stuff. He's
according
like,
to Mary's diary, I feel like Cary keeps a thesaurus in his nightstand and reads it nightly. Yes, that's my fetish. My fetish.
That's his night reading.
I used to watch porn.
Got one in the bathroom too.
Used to look at some of Rory's magazines. And then I thought, it's not stimulating enough. A thesaurus, a nice thick thesaurus, hundreds of pages. And I can just flip through that and talk about, it's the greatest thing. You should try it.
A thesaurus with a trifold.
Yeah, trifold, and then bore a hole in the side and put in some pumpkin rind. I'm telling you, it'll change your life.
Needless.
Well, maybe we've wrapped the show then. Maybe that's a great way to end.
We're going to end it like that. We go from koalas and chlamydia to Mary trying to explain, I swear to gosh, I swear up there.
Yeah.
That it was him.
Well, so there's 8 billion people on the planet.
But you see, Joseph was a compassionate man.
Yes, he was. He
There
was.
we go. Full circle.
Because there are a lot
was
of
a
men,
compassionate man.
a lot of men who would not have sat there through the whole pregnancy and then the birth and kept his mouth shut. Right? He would not have been okay with that. He would have said,
Then
"Oh
again,
yeah, watch
he didn't
this."
want to lose Mary because he wasn't making much money.
That's true. He was a carpenter, and
They
she
had to
was.
stay in mangers and stuff.
Now, was she a hooker? I forget. What was her profession?
I can't remember.
Well, you're a
The son was a
biblical
carpenter,
scholar.
so I'm guessing Joseph probably was a carpenter too. That's my guess.
No, he was a carpenter, but she was a what? Renee would know this because Renee is also
Housewife.
a biblical housewife.
Domestic. Yeah, she was a housewife. You're thinking of St. Mary Magdalene. St. Mary
That's it.
Magdalene
Yeah,
used to
that's
be
the
a
other route.
prostitute.
they
And
made her
all
a
of the
saint.
Pharisees were very angry about that. And Jesus was like, you guys are way worse than a prostitute. The lawyers are the problem, not the prostitutes. And then sort of pissed everyone off. And yeah. She was a
And I-
homemaker. She was a home. I mean, most women in those days would have just been homemakers.
Okay.
But
So
we don't know. We don't know though.
Barefoot
She could have
making
had a side
babies.
hustle. She could have been embroidered. She could have sold things on the side, but it just wasn't mentioned.
Well, how many of the 8 billion women on Earth, how many of them have you read about or heard about that have had divine pregnancy, this parturience out of thin air that we know about medically, where a doctor can say she's
Only
virgin?
her.
Only one time.
Were they-
Only
Only one
her.
time.
But then in the Star Wars thing, George Lucas decided to do that with Anakin, which I thought was so weird. Like, what he brought that up into the fictional, that now Anakin was this divine origin baby. But in real life, no, it's just one. That's
Now-
for you Star Wars fans. You guys know about that.
It was
Yes,
Nobody
of course.
hates Star Wars.
I hadn't thought about it. I mean, I hadn't actually taken that seriously.
Well, it's
was that
not
guy
real. I
Watto.
mean, Anakin
Watto was the one who
Skywalker's
did
not
it.
real. It's not the
With the big
Bible.
nose. Huh?
I'm just saying that I always was turned off by that, why George Lucas had to go and steal that for Anakin Skywalker. Anyways,
Well,
I'm
he was
nerding out
clearly
right
running
now
out of
and we've
gas when
totally
he came up
gotten off
with
topic.
Jar Jar Bing and the rest. He was
That
he
was
ran out of
the end.
storyline.
That was the end.
So
That was the end.
And the Emperor. Isn't he like the grandfather of Rey? Wasn't that you put in the last one?
I don't know enough about Star Wars. I just know that Anakin was.
Excellent.
We've come full circle. I guess the answer is that is
I'm
this
a
compassionate
compassionate man.
malehood? I don't know. Maybe this is. I don't know.
I think we're being, are we being compassionate? I think we're being compassionate. We are reviewing our fellow man. We have really broken down a whole circle of behavior, whether it's congressmen, senators, people yelling things, incels, male behavior, really. Notice how there isn't a ton of problems with female behavior. It's either you call them a slut or you don't. But they're just generally women are just decent, pretty much decent. You look at Finland, where all the leadership is female and the quality of life and happiness is through the roof. Same with Denmark and other places where women kind of run the show. It's because they make sure people's needs are met and that they're happy and their dieties are changed and they pay attention to detail and they care. And maybe that's sort of the difference, is that many of us men, when nobody's looking, we drop back down on our knuckles
We're
and drag
cavemen.
ourselves.
We're troglodytes. We are.
Well, we are, right? I can't read that. What does it say? Traditional like members
No,
really don't seem.
toadstool-like members, toadstool-like members really don't seem to contribute to compassion from what I gather.
Yes, yes. So let's finish with breaking down Genocide Joe and Honest Don. And these are just nicknames that the
Genocide
British
Joe.
are calling our two heralded leaders here. So Honest Don has never said, to my knowledge, a nice thing about another human being, other than he's a great guy. Well, Nazis. Many of them are nice people. Other than that subset,
Putin's great.
I mean, really, he's never said anything nice about anything, about women. I mean, have you ever heard of that?
They're wonderful. I can grab them. They let you, the power. They let you do it. That's the nicest thing I've ever said about women.
We have one with us right now. As a woman, Renee, because I know, and let's acknowledge this up front, women are trained like beagles in this culture and many other cultures to feel like they have to subordinate themselves to a man's opinion often.
Yeah.
Like they're not supposed to interrupt us when we're talking. They've been trained. It's not their fault, them, as if Renee's not, wait, you're there, as if Renee is not there. But she is there. And she's one of many who have taken her power back and is in the process of that. And that's why we love it. That's why she's here, because she makes it better she's making streaming great again. Masa.
Sounds a little bit too much like massa for our like. I don't think that as three white people we should be saying that acronym. New acronym, please.
That's a good point. Okay.
The phones are ringing again, Cary. It's a lot of
there we go.
phones. Yeah.
You had to do it. You had to take it there.
So when you hear, as a voting woman in this country of 370 million people, you hear a guy that wants to be your boss, your commander in chief, that if he can just grab you by the you-know-what, and that's fine. And of course, 1/3 of the nation takes that as permission completely.
Yeah.
If you were a man and a beautiful woman said she wanted to grab you by your dick, you would not object to that. You would not object to it as a man. It'd be like, great. What corner and at what time?
Can't rape the willing.
I think we need to. Oh, geez. Now that's going to be in everyone's nightmare. That's the nightmare fuel.
Clint Eastwood saying that.
Do it again.
You can't rape the willing.
I'm gonna hear that in my nightmares. Thank you, Rory.
Sorry.
Yes, Cary.
But it's different if you imagine a butt naked Honest Don wearing nothing but a pair of black socks and garters, holding the socks up with the clips on the bottom, standing there with a giant belly hanging over with white hair on the belly button. And then as it goes up, a little bit of white hair on the chest, man boobs.
Orange 10, number 42.
Standing there with his toadstool-like proboscis, possibly erect, hard to know, except that the cap is fully inflamed. And there you are on the bed.
Inflamed.
And he's standing at the foot of the bed saying,
It's like Harvey Weinstein all over again.
yeah, it's just not, it doesn't do it, does it?
No, it doesn't do it. And, you talked about women being trained not to
And yet
sort of
Melania?
overshadow. Look, women are trained to not interrupt, not overshadow the man. And let me tell you what David Crosby said. God rest his soul, David Crosby.
David Crosby.
He had dated Joni Mitchell, And he said that he couldn't bear to be with her as a songwriter and a songwriter because he would be proud of one song that he wrote, and then he would trot home to show it to her. And she had written 17 better songs in the same amount of time. And the competition, he could not bear it. And when he told Howard Stern this, Howard Stern said, "Oh, I could have never dealt with that shit. I would never be with a woman who was better than me at broadcasting."
Howard Stern
So
said,
then if
"Did
you're
you
a
see a
woman, how
can?"
are you supposed to continually date down enough or up enough, or what can you do? You have to continually pretend to be inferior and just go smaller so that you don't offend the sensibilities of the men you're interested in. It's atrocious.
So
So
what if
David, tell me what her body was like.
so if a man has decent self-esteem, he's not going to be threatened by a woman because he
Right.
knows who he is. He knows what he can do. He's actually happy to have a partner who can like do shit
Right.
and think. Like that's
Right.
cool. That's cool.
Doesn't that make him look better if
For
his
sure.
woman is smart, beautiful, intelligent? Like, why does he want her to be so inferior? There's entire books written about this
Because
phenomenon.
David
No.
Crosby is not a compassionate man.
Apparently not.
We see, here's a great example. One of the reasons that some white guys absolutely have a kind of bigotry toward African American men is the last thing that some average, see, I got to be so careful. I can't even say it anymore.
Okay, I'm going to say it. Wait, let me say it, Cary, because I have a whole theory about this. It's not even a theory. I think it's real. I think this is real. Back in the slave days, you would have the white master watching the African Americans in the field, in the hot field, taking their shirts off, working, getting those muscles, looking gorgeous, and all of the women folk who were white lusting after them, looking better than them. And yes, this, and then the idea about their manhoods being longer or bigger and all that stuff.
The Sheboygan people.
But they
Eddie Murphy
looked
used to say that.
amazing, and they're covered in sweat. And then you have some idiot-looking
Dumpy.
asshole there with his little pen. No, I know how to write because I made sure they couldn't. And he couldn't figure out why all the women wanted to have sex with those beautiful men, and he got jealous. And so, what do you have to do? Genocide. Genocide is
With
basically the
Mandingo.
answer to every time the women want to go with somebody else. That's just my theory.
Okay, let's take it a step further because
How can we go further, Cary?
okay. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. And I never thought of it through the perspective of being the woman on the porch
Yeah, with the
Holding an
sweet
ice
White
tea,
slave owner
mediocre.
woman.
and looking at a sea of glistening, hot musculature
And then
With a
wanting to
picture
have
and
of-
sex
thinking,
with all of
look
them.
at that
goodness.
ass. Look at
Yes.
those pecs. Holy Christ. Look, I've never seen a body so beautifully well
They work
formed. And
all
then I
day.
look over at my husband, who's a dumpy redneck, missing teeth,
Yes.
smoking a corncob pipe. Let's see, A or B? A
Yeah.
or B?
Let's just see which one she wants to have kids with.
Now, let's
Got the
let's-
mutton chops, joust, belly hanging over. Come on, make it real. Make it real.
and you've got the same white guy who wants to get a job somewhere. And the last thing in the world he wants to compete with him is Sidney Poitier walking in a Brooks Brothers suit, articulate, dashing, sweeping, sitting down and doing the same interview and just knocking the interviewer off his feet because it's Sidney Poitier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the white guy, all he could say is, yeah, I can do that. Shit. Yep, I can show up on time. I promise. I swear to God. And I won't be drunk. Yeah, I swear I won't be drunk. I promise, show up on time. And Sidney Poitier walks in and the whole room gasps. That is what they don't want. Is they know, a lot of them, my people, know that you can't compete on a level playing field.
Right.
Just-
And that's why LBJ, now let's come full circle. LBJ said during the civil rights movement that a lot of white men, the only thing they could ever be proud of in their life is that at least they're not black.
Mm.
That's the only thing they have. So once you adjust the playing field, they have those white men have nothing to be proud of. The only thing they have is oppression in their favor.
Well, what a lovely note to end the show.
With LBJ, we just come full.
Yes,
Those
LBJ,
big long
who-
earlobes. My friends.
at that famous recording of him where he's on the phone talking to his tailor and saying, make sure you loosen the belt on that because it snugs my bunghole.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
He didn't
Beautiful
say snugs my
American
bunghole,
history.
did he?
Yes.
Yes, bunghole.
Snugs my
Said with the
bunghole.
Texas tone there.
Mhm.
Well, this was great fun as always. I want to thank you, Rory Penland, man of 1,118 voices. Renee, daughter of Simone, former lover of Vladimir Putin, but she has distanced herself by several oceans. She's
Yes.
now here in the land of E pluribus unum, the land of amber grain or whatever's left, soy, I guess. Here,
brave.
having reconstituted herself with a keen legal mind and critical thinking and thoughtful analysis in a way that we knuckle walking Hispidulite men, well, we can't compare or compete fairly. So
Yes.
we look up to her and we get on bended knee, Rory and I do, and supplicate before thee.
And that's where I get the whip from. And it's beautiful.
And it works out great.
Gifts.
It
So-
does. It really does. Thank you,
You-
Cary, for allowing us to be here and to be your friends and
Yes.
to allow us to be here on this beautiful show. We've learned a lot. And I
we've
don't think any
unlearned a
other
lot.
show
And let
can
us
compete
play.
with it.
We really think you're cool.
Well, we will look forward to seeing everybody next week. Thank you for the live comments below. And we do this on Mondays at 7 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Eastern, which is 4 p.m. Pacific. And of course, I put these on just as it goes away. Informative and funny while still keeping it overall real. Well, there you go. Real overalls, that is us. And we thank you, and we will look forward to seeing you next time. Ta-tas.